What's up, fighter? Sam Battlefield here. Thanks for joining me on my journey into constraints-led approach, coaching, etc. It is Friday morning. It's been a pretty good week, actually. We've been working heaps on mount, primarily sort of mount escapes, but mount defense basically, and getting back to a conditionally better position. So going from like high mount to getting a foot between the leg or something like that. Variety of constraints that have really been poignant in showing just how beneficial the constraints-led approach is. One of the things that kind of has popped up recently, which we're not doing any submissions as such, so like overtraining of one submission doesn't happen, but what was happening was I was getting very weak because I was using my lats so much. So and I was just reading some things about how CLA, while the overtraining in sort of IP traditional method, where it's like, okay, we're just going to do the Americana 1,000 times, and then you're like, oh fuck, my shoulder's fucked, which is how a ton of my injuries were exacerbated and that sort of thing. Like, this shoulder was absolutely torn out by doing arm bars years ago. When I say torn out, it was already fucked. It was already torn out. But, Alex was demonstrating. He literally put me in a thing, pulled on it, and it came right out of the socket and just absolutely destroyed it. So, and so that's when I started going back to rehab for it. But yeah, there was a bit of a light bulb moment on a couple of things this week. So overtraining was one of them. So a good point that was brought to me was Dave was talking about how his lower back was hurting, and fortunately we'd moved on from doing face down back escape sort of stuff. That's my daughter, by the way. I want to do more research into trips before I start creating games around trips and that sort of thing. I have found that my session intentionality around it isn't as high as I would like. I definitely need to know more about trips in order to develop games around it. Takedowns as a whole, but the things that I've been testing have actually started working. So I'd rather work around things that I've been testing, rather than try and do something that I'm not as confident in. I know that that's kind of a cop-out, but I don't think that I'm going to give the best constraints until I understand what I'm looking at a lot more, which means that I've got to do a ton of like live research basically, which is something that was also a bit of a revelation to me this week, which was I haven't been doing much live research. So, watching live matches, all that kind of thing, mainly because I've got this new job, life, family, etc. I started watching stuff over the weekend, which was cool, and I'll definitely get more back into that. So this week we kind of moved to like a half guard scenario, because part of the goals from both underneath mount and back control, part of those goals were to just Here's my daughter. So, part of those goals were that that they were to get back to like a half guard with an arm over the back. And so I started them in that, and the goal was for the person on top just to get back to mount. The person on the bottom was to basically disengage or get that person on their hips. Started talking about, so Levi brought up a couple of really good questions. I have done a couple of videos on this that are sitting in my phone, but I don't think that they were specific enough or targeted enough. So he asked, basically what would my response be from the literature essentially around bad habits, because the game that we were playing was half guard, but the person on top was not allowed to grab hands, right? So they weren't allowed to grab hands. So allowed to use their arms, but just weren't allowed to grab hands. Person on the bottom could, but yeah, I think the idea was, if you're learning in that environment where the person's not allowed to do a fairly major thing, then wouldn't that develop bad habits? And the answer is, well, no, because we are an adaptive system. So what tends to happen is we give, you'll give 15 or let's say 5 things to think about, and most of the time it's like, you have to break their posture. You have to, by grabbing on the back of the neck, you have to grab this. You have to pull on an arm, and in many cases those instructions are like super specific. You have to grab this part of the arm and this part of the arm, and that's how you control that post. But as we know, there's a myriad of ways that you can control a post. So already you're stacking the mind with these non-negotiables, right? According to the sequence, according to the technique, you're stacking the mind with these non-negotiables that the person's kind of trying to tick off, and then the core, which I'll get back to that, but the real non-negotiable of the move is really the destabilization. Like, it's the affecting of the power center. All of the other stuff is kind of superfluous, hence why I constrained out the arms. And yeah, so the idea of building a bad habit, no, that's not what's going to happen, because what ends up happening is you learn the actual core of the move, which is the destabilization, and then when you introduce arms back into the mix, well, firstly, most of the time you're destabilizing the core by affecting it with some sort of a frame, so it's very difficult to fuck with your arms in that respect anyway. Levi brought up the thing of, yeah, but what about chokes? And it's like, yeah, great point, right? But you're doing the thing, they start choking you, you go like this, or you stop it, and then your arm's exposed, and then you get taken your arm. Whatever the sequence of things that happen, if you were to overcorrect, right, which is you adapting to that, you're getting choked, I got to protect my neck, whatever, right? You are adapting to your environment, right? We are an adaptive organism, and what ends up happening is you will adapt quicker on these tiny things than if you had stacked your brain cognitively with all these tiny things. You got to protect your neck before you do this, because no, you got to learn the actual core of the technique, or the core of the the move, which is, you know, if you're going to sweep them, you've got to put them on their hip. That's a non-negotiable, right? I like this non-negotiable, but I'm going to start using core. There's a reason for it. I'll get back to it. We also address the throwing away thousands of years of technique and knowledge, and you know that this one really irks me as an argument, because it's like, do you think the coach is starting completely from scratch? No, the coach is sitting there like myself. I have done 15 years of jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts, but primarily jiu-jitsu, right? I've done 15 years of it. In many cases, I would say on average three times a week. Like, you know, the last couple of years the last 4 years it's been 6 times a week. And, you know, there was years there where I was doing literally 6 days a week all the time. So, like, on average, I'd say 3 days a week. And I'm still only a brown, right? I know I've got a heap more to learn, but this idea of we're throwing away thousands of years of knowledge just to start again and let them work it out themselves, that's not what's happening, right? It's just we're sitting on that knowledge and we've learned a better way to impart it, and that's all that is, right? Is we're learning a better way to impart the knowledge, right? A quicker way, a more scientific way. That's all it is. It's not like this is, you know, a new, a completely different parallel universe where, I'll start again with and just do CLA. No, I'm taking the knowledge that I know, and I am looking at the way I'm coaching that knowledge and saying I can improve that coaching, knowledge transformation or knowledge transfer. I can improve that knowledge transfer, right? I think I'm using that academic term, knowledge transfer. Yeah, I am. Knowledge transfer is like when you're able to transfer knowledge from one thing to another, not necessarily me transferring my knowledge to you. Anyway, don't worry about that. I'm going to get back to core, so the core of things. So I don't even know why I haven't thought of this before, because for fucking years I have I'm actually quite famous in the digital marketing space. When I say famous, my videos have garnered probably a few 100,000 views at least over the years, and primarily in the digital marketing space. And one of the theories that I had in digital marketing, which I don't know why I haven't put it across, but I'm training people at the moment, and I went, oh crap, core theory is such a good theory. Why am I using it to coach in my work life and not implementing it in my coaching life, which blows my mind. But anyway, so I developed a theory called core theory for Google marketing, basically. And core theory, it just works from top to bottom in your business. You got to find the core of the business, whether that be revenue or profit, the core that means the most to you. And then out of those, like, it's the old 80-20 rule, right? So 20% of your keywords are going to bring in 80% of your business. So you put down the core of your business in keyword form, and then you identify the 20% that works for you, and then that 20% that works for you, you then give it the bulk of the budget. All right. Hey, bro. So, like, one thing I've got to be careful is not to shoehorn that concept into everything, but even just then I was like, fuck, that actually, it works with other stuff as well. So, anyway, seeing Battlefields here. I'll speak to you soon. Peace.